Hello traders and welcome to the weekly Forex forecast for the week of May 19th, 2019. Looking at starting with the dollar index here on the weekly time frame, and you can see that we got pretty much what we expected. We saw a little bit more of a correction and then finally a kind of a move out of this area here. Um, you can see that we had a breakout here and then a little bit of a correction here, and we're continuing to follow through here. I think going into this next week, you could probably see this dollar strengthen probably a bit more. Still targeting this 98.68. See if we can reach up to that level here. Watching that area for resistance. Currently, with keeping the lid on prices right around this 97.70 area, but we're getting a close right above 97.46. In a strong close to the week. So we might have either a choppy week or bias to the upside, maybe even hit that 98.68 at some point, or at least match these highs here at 98.28, 98.30. So we'll be watching that here going into the week. But if we start to rotate down here, 96.49 would be the area of support to go ahead and look for. Going into the next week, we have some news that's going to be coming out. And during the end of the week, we're going to have the European, I believe the European parliamentary elections. And just to watch out for the whole week, any trade rhetoric when it comes between the U.S., the EU, that's been heating up as well, and obviously China and with Canada. But that deal sounds to be kind of sewn up here at this point. So I'd expect either chop to the sideways or some upward bias here in this chart. Going into the euro on the weekly, just to kind of follow that dollar strength theme here. You can see it had a pretty negative week. Currently, the lows here at 111.14 could be targeted and had here at some point if you continue this further downside momentum here. Very similar to the dollar index, nice move down, fairly corrective, and then a resumption of that move. So if we can break 111.14, 111.10 area, I could certainly see further downside to around the 110 area. So that's going to be an area to go ahead and watch. Probably won't tag that next week unless there's added volatility, but certainly watch that 111.10 area to go ahead and get broken. Still leaning a little bit more towards the bearish side here, but as you know, this has been pretty choppy. So a little bit choppy to the bearish side here in the euro. Pound dollar, certainly, looking towards the bearish side here as the Brexit negotiations are still ongoing and news is still trickling out about them. For this one, had a pretty down week here. Could expect further fall here. Maybe into this 124.84 area. That'd take a pretty good move. But the first support area that we're going to go ahead and look at is going to be right around this 126.70 area, 126.50. That's going to be a key area for it to hold up. If it does indeed break the 124.84, that's certainly on deck at that point. So leaning to the bearish side, probably even a little bit to the choppy side if it definitely starts to correct here and starts to give back some of these gains or anything positive comes out. With so far fairly negative news for the pound, and expect that to remain the same here at least for the next week. Dollar yen had a beautiful rejection candle here, and a lot of people are, cautiously optimistic on this pair, but and on the lower time frame certainly looks a lot more corrective. Even with that nice rejection candle there, you can see that we've started to move higher, but not as aggressively as you'd expect. The thing with the dollar yen obviously has to do with a lot of U.S.-China trade relations, and if that doesn't hold up, or if there's a further breakdown in the talks there, you can certainly see the 108.71, 108.13, these support areas get tagged here pretty quickly. So that's going to be a key area thing to watch is the U.S.-China trade relations, and if you start to see if you don't really hear news coming out, or if it's pretty quiet on that front, even if there's no progress, but it's just quiet, you can certainly see this pair start to rise. And you were looking at 111 area here to go ahead and get retested. So we'll be looking at that. I'll go ahead and mark that here on the chart for you. Watching that 111 area to go ahead and get tagged. If the news is fairly quiet, that'd be a good resistance area to go ahead and watch for the week. But really kind of dependent on what's going on over there in regards to trade relations. But that nice rejection candle, but I expect this to maybe correct up a little bit higher and then start to maybe even to the 111 area, 110.50 to 111, and then start to trade down here, start to correct to the downside. Aussie dollar, pretty bearish. They have elections going over the weekend, but yeah, certainly leaning a little bit further to the downside here. We broke that key 70 level, and 68. This 68 level does not hold up to 68. right around 68.60 here. If that does not hold, and that does indeed break, could certainly open up the doors to 68, the figure, and even 67 here. So leaning a little bit more towards the bearish side here in the Aussie. We could get a little correction to 69.27, but again, the elections here this weekend should be fairly interesting to see how this shakes out, but looking pretty bearish here for the Aussie so far. Kiwi dollar following suit here as well. Hit the support level that we were talking about last week, around 65, the figure. And we'll see if it kind of gets supported here and gets a little bit chopped to the side, or maybe a little bit of relief bounce here. But again, with the elections, 65 is going to be holding up support. If that does indeed break, look for 64.35 as next area of support. Currently resistance, if it does bounce though, would be at 66.46. Dollar CAD, you can see kind of getting tied up here, and the trade relations have gotten a little bit better. And talking about releasing the tariffs or lifting the tariffs between U.S. and Canada. I could see the Canadian dollar strengthen here, and we've kind of been, this 135 has kind of been a lid on kind of iron lid here on the dollar CAD, and we could start to see some further declines here if the CAD starts to strengthen. We'd start looking at 132.95 and beyond that 130.93 here for support. So if it does break out further to the upside, 135.70 and 136.39 would be the areas to go ahead and watch. Euro yen, again, drifting down to the downside here. If we continue to, I'll go ahead and move this level here for you. If we continue to have trade talks break down again, if it's more of a risk off, especially with the euro, if it starts to trade lower, you can certainly see 121.29 get it hit, even 120 here at some point. So otherwise, if we start to bounce here, I would certainly look at 127.16 here as the next area of resistance, but that would be more of a risk-on type of trade here, and don't see that quite yet. So it's going to be fairly choppy, I think, or a little bit bearish in the euro yen. Aussie yen could certainly see some lower prices here. Currently watching 74.51 for support. Resistance in this market is right around 77, the figure. Short-term resistance will be around 76.02, but a little sideways to bearish here in this market as well. And finally here in the pound yen, you can see a nice little inverse shoulder, head and shoulder here on the weekly time frame. It'll be important to see if we can get any type of rejection candle for the week to see if we can go ahead and take this to the upside. However, broke this 140 area here, right at it currently, but that's a key area of support. With that broken, it kind of opens up the door to 137.51 quite possibly. So it's really going to need to be dependent on what's going on there in the British pound, which looks fairly bearish, at least short term here. And again, what goes on with the yen and trade relations. So, that coupled together could see the pound yen, especially if it gets kind of nasty, 137.51 could really open up the door for that as support. Otherwise, resistance, if we do bounce from here, would be right around 144.16. That's our weekly Forex forecast for the week of May 19th, 2019. Good hunting out there and happy trading.